And with your participation, together, we shall win. Solidarity.
And now we have somebody who's travelled up from London to be with us today. We've got Stand Up to Racism National Speaker, Andy Browner. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody who's turned out today, because it is so important that we get people out on the streets and that we show unity. Never has there been a time in my lifetime or in recent history when the world has felt so dangerous and so perilous as it does at the moment. Whether it's economy collapsing, whether it's war in Ukraine, the threat of the invasion of Greenland, the kidnapping of a president of Venezuela, never has the situation felt so dangerous and unstable as it does right now. And who has been the cause of this, and who are the main beneficiaries of this? Well, politically, what do we see? We see Farage on the verge of sweeping up in the local elections. Meloni, the fascist, already in power in Italy. The AfD in Germany. And in the White House, Donald Trump, who unleashes onto the streets his fascist army in ICE to intimidate and arrest people from migrant backgrounds. That is the world that we currently live in. That is the world that we're having to negotiate at the moment. That's why it's so important that we do the things that we're doing today, that we stand outside the hostels with refugees, that we counter the Tommy Robinson demonstrations, the Tanconi demonstrations like he did in Newcastle not very long ago. We've got to show opposition, and we've got to show who the real enemy is. I mean, it can be very demoralising when you open your phone and you look at TikTok or Facebook, when you turn on the TV, because the most dominant narrative is a racist narrative. It's a divisive narrative. But what do we know now? We've been told that there are people coming over here to exploit our women, exploit our children, and abuse people. We now know that to be true. But it's not people in small boats who are doing that. It's people who come on jets paid for by billionaires, by people like Epstein and Elon Musk. Elon Musk is in there. Who's in the Epstein files? It's not migrants. It's not trans people. It's not lefties. The people in the Epstein files are billionaires and millionaires. People like Elon Musk. And yes, people like Nigel Farage. We've only got 2% of the Epstein files, and he's already in there 40 times. And we know Tommy Robinson's in there as well. Why has he fled the country? Says he feels under threat. Probably feels under threat for being, because he knows what's coming. He knows what's in there. Him and all his friends are in the Epstein files. They are the real abusers. The ruling class have abused women and children for generations. It's no coincidence. They don't come on rubber boats, they come in private jets. That's the reality of the situation. We've got to point that out, but we've got to create the maximum unity. And I want to give a big, massive thanks to everybody here. Everybody's done what we've done up and down the country in the last year. But there's one group of people we really need to thank. That's the people of Minnesota. The people of Minnesota have shown how it's done. That's what Farage wants to do. He wants to set up ICE-style units to expel people physically from this country. And if he gets into power, we'll have to resist like the people of Minnesota. We'll have to look out for our neighbours. We'll have to protect our neighbours. But most importantly, we'll have to use the real power in society, which was unleashed in Minnesota, and that's the power of the working class, the trade unions, because that's the real reason. That is the real reason why Trump has had to withdraw from Minnesota, because our class has started to move. Who'd have believed that the revolution against the right would start in the United States of America? Who'd have believed that? But it has. And we've got to recreate that here. We've got to pull the people out on the streets here. And the 28th of March, I don't think we can exaggerate how important the 28th of March is, not just for Britain, for what goes on around the world. Already in America, they're planning themselves for the 28th of March to be a No King's Day. We know that other parts of Europe are already planning for that day as well. It can look something like it did back in 2003 when we marched across the world against the war. We're going to be, on the 28th, we're going to be marching against racism, division, and against the right. Never has there been a coalition put together like we have put together for the 28th of March. The trade unions, the Greens, your party, sections of the left, all the NGOs, Idris Elba, Lenny Henry, Paloma Faith, we can put 150,000 people on the streets of London. I believe that. I was there when Robinson put his 100,000 on the streets of London. That was not a nice experience to be there or to watch that. What we want to create for Farage and Robinson is the same experience. When they turn on their telly, open up their phone on the 28th of March, we want to see hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of London. Trade unionists, Greens, trans activists, anti-racist activists, disability activists, everybody who is under threat from the far right, the environmentalists and everybody else. We need to be on the streets of London. We can turn the tide against the far right, and we can turn the tide against this rotten system that breeds them as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you very, very much. That is a really key message today. It's about building the unity and getting as many people out into the streets of London on the 28th as we possibly can. It was very scary last September. It was September the 13th, wasn't it, when those hundreds of thousands of fascists marched behind Tommy Robinson on the streets of London. We need to make sure that we mobilise our anti-racist majority and show them that we can get more of us out on the streets than they can. There are placards going around today here. If you can grab hold of those, as many people as possible. Before we finish, we'll get people to hold them up and we'll do a photograph. There's also the green bucket here, still waiting for donations if anybody's got donations. And we're going to move swiftly on to our next speaker. Really pleased to have some young people represented here. Please welcome Will Ford from Newcastle University students.
Hello, hello, Newcastle. I want to start with a chant. Newcastle United will never be defeated. 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 Woo-woo! So my name is Will. I'm a student at Newcastle University. I wanted to start by asserting that Newcastle Uni is first and foremost defined by a diverse community of staff and students from a variety of different backgrounds. Much like the uni, Newcastle has always been a city built on diversity and multiculturalism, features which are woven into the fabric of what defines this country and its culture. In the UK, the far right is gaining momentum every day. And in the far right is gaining momentum every day, and as they grow, they peddle lies that threaten to tear apart our society. The uneducated misrepresentation of marginalised communities, including asylum seekers and refugees, benefit seekers, and the LGBTQ+ community, is a threat to our society, is a popular narrative used by the far right. Just one instance of this has been the false portrayal by far-right fanatics of asylum seekers as a threat to women and children and a strain on our economy. Ironically, almost half of the convicted far-right rioters in 2024 were also previously convicted for crimes of domestic violence abuses. Not to mention, the Office for Budget Responsibility reported that immigrants paid £140 billion in tax in 2025 in the UK. Not only do these lies spread a message of hate and fear, but also they are a tool used by the far right to distract ordinary people from the truth that our system is failing. Successive governments influenced by profit and a wealthy elite have prioritised and promoted inequality, poverty and insecurity. An NHS on its knees, wages and benefits cut and stagnated, minority groups constantly under threat, all while billionaires who take an active role in pioneering the far right remain undertaxed and above the law. Shame on them. This list of shortcomings is hardly exhaustive, but these inequalities are not the fault of marginalised communities who make an easy target of scapegoating. Rather, they are failures of an unjust system. These narratives must be challenged and fought. If left unchallenged, power-seeking groups like Reform UK, Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson can use this misinformation to grow and push the politics of hate and fear. In 2025, Reform UK's manifesto included limiting access to legal abortions in the UK, forced deportations of legal migrants back to France, and the banning of what the manifesto defines as trans ideology in all schools. Without real action and solidarity, this threatens to be the beginning of a monumental backslide towards fascism. As individuals, it can often feel helpless, but united, every single person here can play a crucial role in fighting back against the far right. Speak with your unions, join local movements, organise, march, protest, have the difficult conversations with family members and friends. If we act now, united as a community, we can stop the far right and show Reform UK that there is no place for hate in Newcastle and there is no place for hate in this country. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Now we've got John Wally, who comes from Keep Our NHS Public North East, a very important cause.
Hi everyone, hi. It's great to be here for us all to stand up and be counted today. So I'm John from the campaign group Keep Our NHS Public North East. So we've been campaigning here in the North East since 2010, and we stand for a publicly provided, publicly funded, comprehensive NHS which is accessible to everybody. So we're against the privatisation of the NHS, and we're against ongoing cuts to the health services. So we're made up of all members of the public, including many nurses and doctors and other NHS staff. And so, we're here today, Newcastle unites. Fantastic. Today we celebrate the great contribution that people from abroad make to our society here in the UK. And we celebrate the contribution that they make to the NHS in particular. And it's simply not true that migration harms our NHS. And today, very briefly, I'd like to give you 3 pieces of information. So first of all, the NHS, as we see it today, would collapse without the workers from abroad. Overall, around 1 in 5, that's 20%, of all NHS staff were born outside the UK. 35% of doctors come from abroad. 27% of nurses and health visitors are from abroad. And those are the government's own statistics. So without these people and without their expertise, it's very clear what would happen. Staff shortages in the NHS would be far worse, and the quality of care would be diminished. And without workers from abroad, the crisis in our NHS would be deepened. Now we know that there's issues around this. We need to support other countries in developing their own health services and training their own staff. But coming back to the UK, here, migrants are not an optional add-on. They're essential and they need to be welcomed. And if you go up the road there to A&E, you'll see a lot of people there from overseas. But these people are more likely to be treating you rather than waiting in the queue for treatment. And to these people, and to everyone who works in the NHS, we say thank you. We hear, but what about those undocumented migrants? There's a myth which is often fueled by some papers or social media or some politicians that undocumented migrants are draining our NHS. Obviously, this is false. The reality is that under current laws, they're only entitled to urgent care and some GP care. Hospitals must charge patients for non-urgent care if they don't have a visa. We also know that some people avoid care because of the cost, and some people avoid care because of a risk of deportation. By the way, we don't think this is right. The UK can afford to provide health care free at the point of need, and that this should include undocumented people seeking safety and security here in the UK. But the fact remains, there is no huge drain on health resources by undocumented migrants. That is a myth. The third bit of information I'd like to give is about human rights, and let's get this right. If you're an asylum seeker, then you have a legal right to seek safety. Therefore, no asylum seeker here in the UK is illegal. Providing asylum, providing protection is our moral duty. If you want to look at it like this, there's also an economic benefit. If you want to look at it like this, after being granted leave to remain, working-age refugees contribute to the economy when they find work and begin to pay taxes. And around 2/3 of people granted leave to remain are of working age. So that's 3 bits of information. The NHS will collapse without people from abroad. Undocumented migrants pay for non-urgent care, and there's a legal and a moral duty to provide asylum. So at KOMP North East, Keep Our NHS Public North East, we believe in healthcare for everyone, and there needs to be no borders in our NHS. So, to wrap up, we need to share these facts. We need to share this love on Valentine's Day. We need to celebrate the contribution of migrants. So we've got 1,000 of these leaflets which spell out the facts that I've just spoken about. So people are in the crowd here giving these out. Please take a number of these. Please make sure you pass these on to your friends and your contacts. And we need to share these facts because they are facts, and we need to stop the racist scapegoating of people from other countries. And the last thing, and people have said it already, and I think you can guess what we're going to say. It's great that you're here today. It says a lot about you. But can I also ask for one last thing? That you and your friends are in London on Saturday the 28th of March for the rally against the far right. And also, if I might just say one thing about that, it's no good thinking that your next door neighbour or that person at work or that person standing next to you here will be going to London. They may be thinking, okay, I'll give it a miss, maybe next time. They may be thinking that. You might be thinking that. But we need you there. We do need you there in London, 28th of March, to stand up for what is right. We all need to be there. Thank you. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Great message. I'm just going to do a chant. While I'm doing that, I'm going to ask everybody to hold up any placards or posters they've got, and we're going. So a few people are here are going to be taking some photographs. And while we're doing that, we're going to do "Say it loud, say it clear."
Refugees are welcome here.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Refugees are welcome here.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Refugees are welcome here.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Refugees are welcome here.
Without